Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. My name is Swiz. Thanks for joining me here on Wednesday night as we lead into round 9, Thursday night footy again, Carlton and Melbourne kicking us off. So should be another interesting round. I'm seeing some great Supercoach scores out there from the public, especially the Supercoach Insider community. So well done to everybody out there. My boy Chris unfortunately did drop a few rankings this week, even without him having Tom Green. So that was a little bit disappointing for us group. Not exactly sure how Benny Boy's going at the moment, but hopefully he's bouncing back from his poor start. And for me, 21-43, the Libba situation hurt again. And obviously having Tom Green probably missed a little bit more of the rest of the carnage. So went up about 2,500 spots. So inside the top 20,000. So at least we're making our way up. I feel like the top 1,000 is going to be a real difficult job this year, but we'll see what happens. There's still plenty of rounds. I think the margin's about 500 points, something like that, 500-600 points. So it's not lost for me completely, but it's going to have to come home with a thunder to have one of those good finishes. But can't do it every year. There's been a couple of little errors here and there. Not taking enough risks early on with a couple of those potential injury-prone players like Yo, who's obviously now out injured. So that's probably going to be on a few people's questions for this week. For me, it's a little bit different with the pod. We're having Libba, as in a pod player, because not that many people own him. So that was disappointing. Just because, obviously copying another concussion and looks like he'll be out indefinitely. He's meeting with, I think, the AFL concussion protocol board. We've obviously seen Murphy and Brayshaw meet with them, and their careers are now over, unfortunately. So hopefully it's not the case for Libba, but we will see how that eventuates for him. And I wish him all the best from a personal point of view. Before I obviously get into that, as always, check us out on all our social media platforms. Thank you to everybody who DMs on Twitter, Supercoach Insider 100, or those who hit me up personally on Swiz26, and then check us out, like, subscribe, all those wonderful things that you can do to help support the channel, in particular on YouTube. Try on Spotify, but some of these visual podcasts is just so much easier now just to have the YouTube. And I know, unfortunately, that's not for everybody, but that's what we're doing. I'll start off with Scotty. So thank you so much, mate. Jumping off Scott Adams, 22. Let's go, Swiss. Cheers, mate. $15. I appreciate that, mate. Hit me up with your team. We'll see what we can do to keep helping you. Let me know where you're ranked and where you're going. Obviously, even if it's not from a Supercoach perspective, if you want to talk footy, I get a couple of footy questions thrown into me, which is good. Actually had a really good chat while I was at work. So for most people know that I do drive trains, and I'm usually hanging around at Flinders Street. So I actually got stopped what we call the perch up there on the concourse at Flinders Street the other day, and we we're talking about St Kilda of all teams. So it's they were having some great chats with some people up there about my feelings about the Saints and where they could go, and are they getting the best out of people like Max King, who obviously they're not. So that was really good. So always happy for a chat, if not there or at the footy, if you're the games. I was chatting to a few guys at the Richmond Freo game on the weekend, which was great because there wasn't much else for me to watch there as a Richmond supporter. All right, so that's what my team is looking like at the moment. So there's some positives and negatives there. Now, there's two ways I can go this week, and I'm still sort of debating over which way I want to go. So at the moment, Libba and I'm looking at keeping right. So it must be not Darcy. That must be actually trying to think. Oh, that's Roberts out. So if I went Roberts and Libba out, I could bring in Clary and Parrish and really beef up my midfield. So that's obviously Clary comes in. Well, he would technically be the let's call him M6 and Parrish M7. Essendon do have a fantastic draw. Do I see Parrish necessarily as a top 8 finisher? Probably not, but you can't discount the draw. I was having an argument with on Twitter about there coming up with Eagle Talk. It's there's different opinions there. I think it was originally disbanded the Western Bulldogs that put up the fact that the Essendon fixture looks really good as they try to move towards a top 4 finish. GWS at home this week, they've likely Tom Green could be missing, which would be unfortunate. And Canelio, we're still waiting to see what happens there. North Melbourne, Richmond will be percentage boosters. The Suns away. Suns are tough away, but can be beaten. The Blues, depends what sort of form they pull up at the moment. They're in a little bit of a rut at the moment. Don't lose faith, Blues, because they should still be fine. And then West Coast at home, and obviously him as a West Coast supporter, Eagles talk was definitely defending the Eagles, but the reality is the Bombers should take care of that. So they could have some good percentage boosters. And I did say this a week or two ago, if Parrish gets on a run, jump on. It might only go for sort of 4 to 8 weeks, but we've seen this in the past. If he gets on a run, he absolutely goes huge. And then you need to be aware or need to be willing to jump off when that run happens. So, the longer it keeps, the better. The other way I can potentially go is I could potentially trade, say, a Darcy and go either young Jones from the GWS, which he's shown some good form so far. Break even of -75. I know a lot of people are naturally looking at him. Scores of 75 and 70. If he kind of keeps that up, you're looking at least probably 100K at the minimum over the next few weeks. Still, it is a rookie. They do have some tough games. Bombers away. They have Geelong coming up as well soon. Port Adelaide, Swannies after their bye. So depending on how long you're looking at keeping Jones. The other one is McKercher. Had some questions about him last week. Well done for those who did jump back on him. Obviously went up 58K. Break even of -61. Looks like he's got that halfback role back. Sheasel moving into the midfield. So he is definitely under consideration. 102, 135 can very, again, easily make 100K in the next couple of weeks. And even more so, potentially be like Sheasel and Dacos the last 2 years, become a bit of a keeper if he keeps that, maintains that halfback role, which he's looked very comfortable in there now that he's sort of got that. How many games has he played now? I think it's 8. But as the players get to sort of 10 games, 20 games, they continue to develop. So he is one that I was considering. If I go McKercher or Jones, I'd be pairing Ryan with them. So I could very easily fix my back line and have a case where it's Dacos, Sheasel, Houston, Martin with Ryan and McKercher. And then when I can still look at getting Stewart if he does come cheaper the following week, and then just move McKercher into the midfield. So that is something I'm really debating about. I don't mind the Lions players as well. Neil Dunkley, they do have a really good draw coming up too. They're a real big pod, but after Libba's burnt me, I'm trying to stay away a little bit from those kind of pods, unless they're like bargain basement like Parrish and Oliver are. So I'm on the fence there, really on the fence about the Ryan McKercher versus Oliver Parrish, and sort of chatting that with a few other experts today and other content creators. Most people seem to be pretty well on the fence with that one too. So it's an interesting one. I always wait until teams come out before I confirm which way I'm going to go, because there could be other routes, and then that kind of changes my thinking a little bit. But as I said, with that Bombers draw, I quite like it, and I quite like the idea of like sort of jumping on them. So we'll kind of see where we go. I kind of like the way it looks like there with that sort of deeper midfield, and just because like there will be other cheaper midfielders that will come and go, but jumping on a couple of guys who are proven. We know what Clary, like how well he's done for years, and as I've said, Parrish with those runs, but then Luke Ryan at the same time, geez, he looked good. And I did say to Chris, I think, I don't know if I shared it with anywhere that you guys could have seen, but it's definitely was in our content creators chat. Chris put up last week about trying to get Ryan this week, and I said, how much will he go up with his break even of 165? And I think a few of the boys had a bit of a chuckle, but I was like, he's probably going very large against Richmond. Of course, I say it, but then don't take my own advice and don't jump on Ryan. The only thing I did with Ryan was in the drafts and keeper leagues that I own him, I did make him captain, so that was very good because it did get me up on a few drafts. So I'm pretty happy with that. All right, well, so that's me. We'll go through some of your questions in a moment, but before we get into that, we'll just have a quick look at these teams that have come out, and obviously we've only got the one game so far, which is the Carlton-Melbourne game, being tomorrow night. The rest of the teams, as we always know, come out on a Thursday. It would be better if it's like the NRL situation and all teams came out, say, Tuesday night. But, it is what it is for us. So we've got there, as you can see, the big one for everybody is in that out section, Zach Williams injured. obviously very highly owned. And a few of the questions I've been getting online is about should we trade out Zach Williams? Obviously, I've already done that, but yeah, that's definitely something that I think you've got to have a look at now, especially with a lot of defenders, you guys, and even myself, we don't really have a lot of bench cover happening. So yeah, if you especially don't have bench cover, you've just got to go there. So let's have a look. So that's that. Outside of that, there's nothing really that stands out, except for I think in the emergencies, which is just a little bit frustrating because there is our boy Marty Hoare. So unless there's a late injury, I don't think he's coming in. They want to probably give him more time in the VFL, and the guys in there are doing their job. So unfortunately, he's just sitting there. The update about Zach Reid, while we're just talking about bench rookies, looks like they're going to bring him back via the VFL. And then they'll kind of see where things go from there. So hopefully he's only a couple of weeks away from some senior action, which would be nice to actually just have some bench cover. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. All right, so questions, and we have a few. And as always, thank you so much for everybody that is jumping on. We'll start from the top and naturally work our way down here. All right, Slim, how bad is Bud? And how's Benny's team holding up? That is a great question. We were actually talking about, so we try to get on Monday nights. And I don't know actually what happened there. And then we're talking about last night, and then Chris disappeared, and so that was a bit frustrating. Like I do like doing obviously the group chats with the boys and that. So I think Benny's just swamped with a lot of year 12 stuff at the moment, getting his head around that, which is just frustrating because obviously you guys like to tune in, the three of us. I much prefer bouncing off. That's why I like the Q&As, because me just talking and waffling on when there's no questions here is awful. So yeah, I'd prefer to have guests, or at least talking to Benny and Chris, because obviously we enjoy the banter with each other too. But we will get that back soon enough. So thanks for that, Slim. Global, my man. Thanks, mate. As always, in a few group chats there. So always like, mate, chatting with you. Same with you, John O'Carroll. Thanks, mate. Yeah, I'm going good. A lot of people saying hi, not a lot of questions, but appreciate that, Carol. Here we go, Matty. Is it time to let go of Liver? Unfortunately, it is. And then the question is, how long does Liver actually get back? And it's just a sad state of affairs, but I think it's 4 concussions now in 12 months. I know they kind of try to downplay the last one where he did have the situation where, like, it was that delayed concussion where I think it was Parrish that went to him and looked after him, and then he still managed to play out the game, but there was definitely a delayed concussion there. Had the couple late last year. So, yeah, it's a massive problem for him. Hope he gets back. We know the AFL is really big on this. Going forward. So, what happens there? What happens to the Bulldogs? It's just a question itself. I still think Beveridge is probably the first to get gone. The result to Hawthorn didn't help. There's probably 2 ways they do it. It's either if they have a bad result, they should smash Richmond, but bad results after that, and then potentially leading in the bye, because clubs have more time to work out what they're doing. So if he survives the bye, he'll survive to the end of the year, and then they'll replace him at the end of the year. Or they'll obviously look at, they'll do one of those big reviews, as some clubs do, well, most clubs do anyway. So, and then what sort of happens there, so we don't know what's going to happen with Liver going forward. Might have to just wear a helmet. Maybe they say, it's time. So we'll see. But if you've got him in your Supercoach team, you've just got to get rid of him. At least he's still at a good price where you can trade him to nearly anyone. It's not that much money to get him up to Ryan, which is obviously with his break even, he's going to go up with cash unless the Swans can do a great job on him. But you can pretty well side swap Liver to most people. So, or even make cash by going down to a Parrish or an Oliver. So yeah, he's got to go. It's just frustrating. And that was the same column asking about Liver to Ryan, what's not to like about that? Ryan, the big thing, like the 197, he's just seagulled so much. He was unlucky not to get the double ton. But yeah, it was a great game. But the main thing people were looking at for Ryan was the St Kilda coming up. So 2 of his last 3 games against the Saints, he's gone 171 and 156. We know how much the Saints love to just give points out to defenders. So that's where I'm sort of on the fence, because I would really like to get Ryan as So that's sort of what I'm been looking at. Do I want Ryan or would I want like a double midfielder in there? But the hard thing with missing out of Ryan, he does have Richmond coming up again too. So is it possible that he could do the exact same again? And absolutely, I don't think. No matter what plans the Tigers put in, it's probably not going to change. I don't know if he's going to go 197 again, but it's going to be brutal as a non-owner. The only flip side to it is the Swans have been doing a decent job keeping defenders down. So, they did a good number on Whitfield last week. And it would not surprise me completely if they could at least restrict him to a certain amount. But the game is at Optus Stadium, and he has turned up the last two games they've played against the Swans at Optus Stadium. Obviously, wider wings. SCG be a lot easier for the Swans to tie him down. So, if Ryan was to go another 100 this week, and Supercoach getting projected 139, so that's I don't know if he's going to go that high. But even if it's 100, he's potentially there going up another, 20K, and all of a sudden it's 664. And the following week he goes up even further because, his 89 can come out. And if it's against St Kilda and if he goes huge, we're looking at a guy who's going to be 700 plus. So that's where it's a really hard one to say, do we bypass this guy? Because he's still not highly owned. And the people owning him are just getting paid off every week, like 14% of teams. So those who had him last week, massive edge on the competition. I think most of my league matches I was leading until I came into that Sunday game, and most of my opponents had Ryan. So yeah, I like the move, and I'm really thinking about doing that. Hey, Fabs Park, mate, going pretty well tonight. Can't complain here. Do I upgrade Roberts to Nick Martin? Yeah, I'm loving that. Or should I go Tom Stewart or Houston? No, the Nick Martin call is good, apart from the 122. But yeah, that fixture I just talked about. So that's why I like the idea of Parrish as well. Apart from the Giants this week, but the Giants an undermanned team at Marvel. As good as the Giants are, they do have the ability there for the Bombers to, I think, win that game. And then, North Melbourne and Richmond just have to look like Ryan did against the Tigers this week. We know it's North have been dishing up after their bye. They've got West Coast. Comes a bit harder after that, But I think you've got to take the next few weeks as the focus. And Martin can definitely put up some big scores like any of those Bombers, which is Merritt, Martin, and Parrish. And even look at the Suns. They've got the Suns in 3 weeks, and look what Zorko at halfback, and then you've got the two midfielders in Dunkley and Neil did to the Suns. Now, you'd hope the Suns put up a better performance when they played the Bombers, and even from this week. But yeah, if they don't, or they have an off game, or these Essendon players can run riot as well. So yeah, I don't mind that at all. Stewart, he's going to get cheaper next week, so you can definitely hold it. There'll be a question about another defender in a moment, which I'll talk about. But a couple of these other defenders, they still have high break evens, and I think it's a question of people looking at Yo too, and I'll get into that discussion in a moment. About whether you should hold or look at what options you can look at him. But it's kind of the way Stewart's been lately. It's been a little bit up and down form, but the 104 was fairly solid, but he's still got the break even of 132. So against Port at home, we know he can definitely go higher than that, and we could potentially be paying higher for him for the following week. But what's probably the highest he's going, like his highest score ever against Port is 134. Even if he pulls out a 150, 160, you're probably only paying another 10K for him. The hope is there's probably a bigger chance that he goes less than that, and you could still pick him up at closer to 500,000. Then his break even will drop under 100, and it'll be time to jump on there. So they do have the Tigers coming up soon, and their run home is looking really good. Now there's the potential that Geelong manage him at some point, because they will be managing all their players, just because obviously the age and the list demographic. But I still think Stewart's a great get if you can have him at D6 there, especially for a guy who could be around the 500 mark. So hold on for a week there, and be targeting our boy Nick Martin. Parrish or Olive, I was going to call him Olive for a second. That's a great question. And that's why I'm kind of, if I go the non-Ryan route, I want both, just because I kind of don't want to be second guessing this and going, oh, I should have got one or got the other. The thing with Oliver, we've only seen it back 1 week now. It was awesome. In the wet, well, it kind of wasn't even wet. It was just kind of dewy. Played his best game in a long time against Geelong. So is he back? There's big potential that he is. He's put up some massive scores against Carlton in his last 3 games against them. Break even to 48. So there's potential there if he goes big again. You're going to obviously be paying into the 500 for him. If you're happy to look at that risk and go, okay, I'm happy to still pay an extra 20, 30K for Oliver and get another look at him, that's fine. And I think some people are sort of doing that. Massive pod, because he is only in 2% of teams. That'll obviously raise this week. But the break even of 48 and then West Coast on the horizon. We know North Melbourne's not that far away. And then they have West Coast again after the bye. So there's some easy kills for the Ds. And if he gets going, we know double tons aren't out of the question for this guy. So I think for the upside, I'm leaning towards Oliver in that debate. And just because he has the potential more to be a keeper than what, say, a Parrish does. Parrish with a break even of 28 is very juicy this week. Never been a big scorer against the Giants, highest score there of 120, but he has put up some monster scores against North Melbourne and Richmond before. And that's the next 2 teams. And the fact that he is a pretty good Marvel performer as well. So the slow start this season, but as I said, you only have to look through his previous years when he goes on these runs. Last year he did have a bit of an injury interrupted middle of the year, but he had put up 4 tons before that situation. And then back in 2022, you only have to have a look at the run before he again went down again. But there was a 133, 111, 139, 109, 128, 142 in that period, and they were all back to back in a row. 2021, same situation again. He puts up a 99, a 52, a 79, and then he goes 162, 107, 115, 134, 152, 136, 166. And then there was a 115, 121, 190, and then it tapered off, and it was a 49 and a 74. So Parrish, he puts 4 to 8 week periods together, which are just massive scores. So if this is his run, and it seems like there's enough evidence that it's 3 years. I wonder if I can go back further and is it the same 2020? Let's have a look at that. Probably that was starting to come his bit of his breakout, but even near the end of the year there was a sort of 4 or 5 week period. He's starting to put some decent scores in a row. So the evidence is there. Parrish gets on a run, confidence gets up, and against teams where they could destroy, he can get it. So it depends on, do you want a keeper for the whole year? And I think Oliver's more likely to do that. Or are you happy to ride somebody for 4 to 8 weeks? And if you're happy to ride somebody with massive scores, then jump on Parrish. So it just sort of depends. And that comes down, Ben, with your trades as well. If you're kind of getting to that point where you're in teams, which is some people are, which I'm nearly there, you may not have that extra trade that you're going to want to trade Parrish out at some point. But in saying that, if you've got the extra trades or an extra boost up your sleeve, Parrish is the sort of guy who can easily get up to 650 plus, and then you can look at side swapping him to pretty well anyone at that point. So that sort of comes into the thinking as well. Give us a sneaky pod, well, those 2 for starters. So obviously going to be quite popular this week. The Dunkley and Neil, especially more Dunkley than either of them, because a lot of people will jump on Neil. But we know Dunkley moved from the Dogs, and even at the Dogs, he was a great player. The Bulldogs at the Lions last year had a fantastic year, and we were sort of saying pre-season that not many people jump on. He's a guy that averaged 115 last year. He's done more than that before, but he's obviously the key in that Brisbane midfield. So I quite like him because no one's going to be jumping on him. He's at 4%. And most people are going to be looking at Neil. So the Crows, Richmond, Hawthorn, Doggies, Saints. So that's not a bad run there. And then later on, they play the Crows and West Coast again. They get the Queensland Derby, the Suns. So it's not a bad fixture either. You could be going a lot worse as a pod for Dunks there. So if he's back in form, and the Lions obviously have to continue to win. So yeah, that's one I quite like in the midfield. Any other real midfielders that are pods that are obviously, like, we can talk Lockie Neal, who technically is still a bit of a pod. Like, he's owned. He's in less teams. He's actually in 2% of teams. That's amazing. I actually thought Neal was in more. So there, Neal, there's a great pod. And Neal's actually only gone under 100 once this year. He's got a 71 against the Giants when they got smoked. But some of his scores have been awesome. He has scored 2 scores in the 120s and a 168. And then of the other ones are 112, 109, and a 109. So there's a massive pod to it. Again, that's the same fixture as Dunkley. So the 1-2 combo there, that you could easily jump on for one of them. So I don't think we need to go into anyone else, because there's 2 options plus Parrish and Oliver. That gives you 4 global to look at. So that's the ones that I think it's a bit of. I feel like it's the make or break this week for all of us in Supercoach, because depending on if a lot of people say, I think the popular one's going to be Ryan. So a lot of people are going to probably more try to get him in. That might jump up to 20, 25%. If that does, and he keeps going well, awesome. If Ryan sort of comes back and has a couple of poor weeks, and St Kilda find out how to defend a defender, that will sort of even up those people who brought him in, and maybe able to get a leg up by jumping on a Dunkley or a Neal that less people are going to jump on, because more people are going to go either your Ryan or your Clayton Oliver. So Dunkley's pretty durable as well, so that I really like that. Like, I think Neal would have been a lot more popular. Like, this is the guy that did win the Brownlow last year, if he didn't have the early bye. So yeah, that's if he keeps up this kind of form, it could be another sneaky. Like, if the Lions keep winning, and we know Neal's going to probably get either the 3, 2, or 1 each week, don't be surprised come Brownlow night we'll go, oh my God, how did Lockie Neal win that Brownlow again? Because he just keeps racking up points, and he's kind of out of sight for us, but he is obviously, the umpires are going to see him, because the Lions are winning games and he's their main midfielder. So yeah, there's a little bit of food for thought in regards to a left field option. Thanks for the question, Global. Okay, so what's that? No, we don't need that. Okay, Greg. Hey, Swiz, hope you're good. Yes, mate. Went out for dinner tonight, so can't complain here. This week, Dunkley and Jones. Yes, like it. Week, Oliver V backs up. Yep, and Ryan. But I already have Houston, Young, Sarong, and Butters. Should I grab Ryan or wait for the bye? The problem is, you wait for the buy, is going to be over 700. And maybe you just try to, it's hard to bet against somebody who's just flying so much. But you probably are at the max there. Like, I've got Butters and Sarong and Houston. So I feel like I can fit one more in. At least it's, you can potentially go 5, because I think, you go through those other rounds, you're going to have more players out, and it's easier to cover round 13. So you could definitely go Ryan and add to that mix. But if you got to grab him, you got to grab him now. So if you want him, bypass Dunkley and go get him. If you think Dunkley's going to outscore Ryan, which is, as a midfielder, definitely quite possible. And could you hedge your bets and go against the grain for Ryan and actually jump on the on somebody like a Dunkley? And again, this comes down to rankings too. Like, for me, this is why I'm sort of debating on the Parrish Oliver, because if it doesn't work out, who cares? I finished 20,000. Like, don't give a stuff. Like, yeah, okay, it's my worst year in Yonks, but whatever. But if it pays off and Ryan has an injury or has a couple poor games, and you're further behind, and you've jumped on someone else who, as a pod starts going massive and nobody else is on him, that's how you jump in rankings. Much harder if you're sitting inside the top 1,000, especially if you're sitting inside the top 100 right now, because it takes some guts to take risks. My man Abdul, Supercoach Godfather there, he will. We know that. Will other people kind of follow him? And Chris has been a bit like this year. He's taking some risks, and they're paying off so far. But yeah, to continue to take those risks when you are up there in the thick of it, can be tough sometimes, because some people are like, well, if I do this and it doesn't pay off, I've lost my chance. But so rankings is everything when you're depending on your teams, and this is how people from further behind catch up, because people are going to want to play it safe when you're up near the top. And yeah, you can throw the kitchen sink at any option you want. Just throw darts and but educated darts, and some of these guys that nobody owns, you can definitely jump on. If I kind of have a look at the ownership change this week, so who are the people jumping on? It would not surprise me if there it is, Clayton Oliver. Oh, that's top 1%. So let's just look at the top 1%. So of the top 1%, which is roughly about 1,700 people, half of them have jumped on Darcy Jones, the cash cow, no surprise there. About 270 of them, so 15% have jumped back on McKercher. The 30% have jumped on Ryan, so that would give Ryan an ownership of 61% of the top 1%. And then you've got Clayton Oliver. He's at nearly 40%. So nobody obviously owned him. And then, he's up to 39%, up to 40% total. Actually, quite a few actually didn't have Bont. So then he's the next one that they're jumping on from the top 1% point of view. So everyone from that top 1% are going either Jones and Oliver or Jones and Ryan. Seems to be the two choices. So that top 1,700, if 60% are owning Ryan, there'll be 40% up there hoping he puts up a couple of stinkers, and that's how they'll jump up. And if you're outside that top 1% and you don't have Ryan and he puts up stinkers, well, you're gonna catch them. If Ryan keeps going nuts like he is, and then you're not on him, well, the gap's going to fall further behind. So that's sort of what you've got to decide and go, well, am I willing to anti-pod him, or do I want to play it safe there and maybe anti-pod another player? And the other anti-pod will be Oliver, if you want to go that way. So that's a make or break. If Oliver starts smashing it, you're going to have to jump on. If he's not and you're not on him, well, you're going to get a leg up there. So even if we go back to, say, the top 10%, what's that doing? So that's the top 17,000 this week. So that's a bit more relevant for me right now. And the ownership change there again, Darcy Jones, nearly 50%, it's 45%. So nearly half of them are bringing in him, Clayton Oliver, Luke Ryan. So that'll be about 50% of the top 10% overall will own Ryan. So no surprise there. Zorko, some people are looking at. You can hold a week for that because he's break-even 102, but that is a guy that we need to seriously consider. The following week, his break-even will drop to about 50, and he'll be playing the Tykes. So that's somebody at 559 as potentially the best forward this year. And we know we've been talking about the age, and that's why it's been putting people off. And but outside of that 56 against the Giants, again, they were shocking that night. He's been flying. So they do have the first bye. But if there's a guy who's playing through your buys, and if he keeps putting up monster scores, he's definitely one to seriously consider. And I'm pretty sure he's a pretty big pod as well, because not many people are on any of these Lions players. So he's on 6% at the moment of the top 10%. So there's definitely a way to get a leg up. Lockie Sutherland, some are jumping on him this week, 102k mid. I kind of get it, but you get a free look at him. So I wouldn't be jumping this early. Let's see how he goes this week. All right, did spend a bit of time on that question. Hey, Thomas, good day to everyone in the chat. Exactly. Thanks, mate. I love the people who get around each other as well. Always appreciate that. JT, thoughts on Sinclair as a pod now here? And this is great. And because this is the make and break, as I was saying before. Some of your decisions this week can really help you jump up the ranks. If you especially go anti-pods like Sinclair's break-even's right where you want to get him, 59, 537. He's not getting any cheaper. They have the Hawks this week. They've got a real opportunity to get on a run after the probably not that convincing win, but they got the points, they got the job done against North. We know they've got the Eagles coming up in that bye period. Freo, Melbourne, Suns, they'll all be big games, but the Saints draw again. It's not too bad. Sinclair currently owned by 1.9% overall, so I think that's something to definitely consider as a pod. We know he's done it before. He took a couple of games to get back into fitness, and he's flying again. 113, 134. He's been a top 6 a couple of times, so you definitely could go worse than him. Depends on how many defender spots you have as well. If you don't have Stewart, you'll be targeting him. If it's a debate between who you want at D6, I'd probably wait for Stewart just because of the upside. But if you've still got a D5, D6 to fill, Sinclair more than fine as a pod. And the Saints, they're going to be in the thick of it to try to make finals. So definitely, consider him there. Thomas, I'm on him, JT. Yep, I love the fact that you guys answer each other's questions too, but only because I've locked myself into buying a defender and there's no dual position. So yep, that's fine as well. So I do like it. Who else we got here? Yeah, and as you were saying there, JT, you could definitely climb into the 600k, but you're not picking him necessarily to make money. But he's as a guy that can score and put up massive scores. Yeah, no problems. Well, more consistent from him. Like he was pretty consistent last year. I think his highest was about 130. Oh no, he had the 160. Then outside that, there was some 130s. But yeah, he'd throw in the odd 60, but outside that, he's pretty consistent, and that's why he ended up averaging 106 for the year. So there's a guy that can do it in defense. So I like it. All right, Burners, full primo in defense. Got Ryan, brought him in this week. Yep, Dacos, Sheasel, Houston, Martin, and Bailey D. So no Tom Stewart. What do you think? Yeah, I've got no problems with it. You've got the potential there to have a look at Sheasel this week to see what role he plays. If he continues to play midfield, you can always move a Sheasel to Stewart. That's fine. But as you know, you've got most of the best defenders. So Bailey Dale is probably the one that isn't the top of the top, but he's performing well enough at the moment that he can definitely at least for a period of time stay with the competition. And I don't think he's going to be that far off where he's probably can still be like top 10. So is it going to be that big of a point gap that you're like, oh my god, I've got him instead of him? Probably not. So that's a pretty solid defense. And well done to those who jumped on him last week. So it's and at worst, like if you've got a Bailey Dale, like even if he for whatever reason there was some sort of role change or he did have a form drop, he's going to be probably back over 600k. The Tigers this week, he's going to probably have a field day there. He'll, if they've got him projected 111 and then only making 25k, but we saw him go 175 a few weeks ago against the Saints. If he goes big, he could get another spike, potentially get towards 600k, and then you just kind of monitor the situation. And if he's continuing to go well as a D6, great. And if he doesn't, you've always got the option of a Stewart, maybe a Sinclair to change that. You've all, and as I said about Sheasel, and you've also got the option Dacos and Martin. If, for example, one of the defenders, the 7 best defenders were better than, let's say the 7th best defender was better than the 8th best midfielder. Now, it's very unlikely that would happen, but you've got the flexibility of moving Dacos or Martin in the midfield, so you can do things like that. So the Tom Stewart thing's not urgent, but you just got to be prepared because they do have a lot of games coming home at Geelong. And if Stewart does get on a run, you might want to move some pieces around to get him in, but as a full primo, that's pretty solid, mate. All right, here, who we got down here? Michael, with 4-line options not the best, and they are awful, yes. Thoughts on running a 9 premium midfield through the buy so we can cover a buy? But yep, I like that. Then trade out one after the buys to get another line. Yeah, that's fine because the midfield is obviously the place we're getting the points. Like, who are we wanting our forward line that we kind of don't already have? So Zorko, I've already mentioned, and one of the better midfielders, better forwards, I should say, this year. So most people have Heaney, most have Flanders. So you got Zorko, Harry Mackay, which I don't think is highly owned. I should actually get up the top 1% for this again. But Jackson, which is still, he's heavily owned, sort of not going as great as we would want, but he's covering the ruck line this week. And I think when I had my team up there before, you could see with Hayes, who we haven't actually talked about yet. Not Hayes, Sweet. So he does give us some cover there. So he is playing a role, which is important. So of the top 1% of forwards, what do we got here? So you got Flanders, Heaney, Harley Reid still at 90%. And then actually it does drop off. So pretty well outside of that, Powell, Jackson, there's no real other players that own. Jack McRae we've got to look at now if Libba's going to be out for an extended time, but he'll still be around the same price next week. Zorko is in only 14% of the top 1%, so he might be one to grab on next week. But there's not really that many other forwards. And even if you look at the averages, like some of these guys, Harley Reid, you've got Darcy Wilson pulls out a 126. So some of these rookies are scoring better than some of the premiums in the forward line anyway. It kind of gives you the option there if you want to go that ninth midfielder. And then, if one of these guys gets hot, you can sort of trade on them. Maybe it's a Jeremy Cameron. Maybe somebody picks up, which is unlikely, but picks up dual position status. So we haven't really talked much about that. Does like a Jack Hayes come in for a little while and continue to do well playing that forward ruck role. We've seen that, being a successful position for a lot of players as well. So there's a lot to play out with the forward line, and we kind of hope that somebody picks up that dual position. So I don't mind that play, and that's a good way to get ahead. As always, hey Kev, hope you're well, mate. Thomas, what have we got here? I actually locked myself into a defender upgrade. Comben, Roberts to what do you got there? Comben and Roberts to Sinclair and Jones. We've talked about Sinclair. I like it, mate. Frankie, should I bring in Sinclair and Oliver, 2 premiums, or Sinclair and Jones? And this is a little bit of this make and break because Jones is the obvious rookie. There are still rookies on the horizon, like Lockie Sutherland could be next week. Darcy Jones is performing well. Again, the problem is how much cash could he make? Like at any point, he could drop a bad score. At the moment, it looks like he's scoring 70s. What's another 70 next week? So that's 62, about 65K for next week. So that gets him up to 188. The following week, he probably makes 40, so he gets his 100K. But if he puts in a stinker at any point, we know what's going to happen to that cash. And it could be, if the stinkers this week against the Bombers and he only puts up like a 40, probably gets that 50K rise this week. And then the next week we're looking at 20K, and then it's done again if he doesn't put up a good score. So, but he's done everything right so far. But he's getting sort of 15 touches. He's impacting the scoreboard. Excuse me. So it just depends if he can continue to keep that up or not. And that's why I kind of don't mind the 2 premium option, because I feel like there's always going to be some sort of rookie or cash cow that we can potentially get in. As we said, we saw Lockie Sutherland. Have a look at teams this week, see if there's anyone debuting as well, because that will kind of maybe sway us one way or the other. Because if there's more guys coming in on the horizon, we saw that with the Lions last week. Just because of their injuries, they had to play some players. So if you're going to have players like that who are only playing who've played one game, you can look down that avenue. Last week we had Rogers didn't kind of work out, but there was 2 or 3 options we could bring in. So maybe it is like get the double premium, get the points on field, and then kind of have a reassess after that. So who do we actually have with games played? We've got actually, if I go, see if my Supercoach wants to be kind to me with the old cash cow. So who we got here? Potentially looking at Jack Hayes. So at 228, a bit more expensive, but did have a really good first up with the 115 playing the Hawks this week. So if he goes really well, you might be looking at say him. We've talked about Lockie Sutherland. We've got the Lions players. Where are we here? Apologize, guys. There we go. You maybe Bruce Reville wasn't the greatest first game, but 102K. What if he comes out and has a really good second game? We've seen this just because I think one thing with rookies as well, some players might, so Bruce Reville's gone 59 in his first game. I think he got called up at the last moment too. So if he survives and gets a second game, he could potentially go really well. Like we see so often players in their first game go 100 and they don't back out the second or the third week, where the opposite, sometimes players, we've had it already this season, they might score like a 40 or a 50 first up or be a sub, and then their second game they might score similar, and then the third game, that's when they get their spike, and that's the one we don't jump on. There is a few little options there that we can definitely obviously have a look at. Logan Morris, not again in that same situation, a 37 doesn't look great, but if he survives, how does he go in his second game? And if he scores well, then it's something to think about. So there are a few players there that we can potentially be looking at next week and the week after, and maybe we can bypass Jones, but a lot of the top players are jumping on him for that cash grab this week, and the break even of -75 does look good. And yeah, if he was to go 70 again, it's a 65k crash jump in one go. So it goes both ways. But yeah, do you want the guy on your bench making cash, or do you want two guys scoring points on field and getting a rookie off? And that's where the debate comes this week. Scotty, Swiz, what's your pod move you think you could shoot up the ranks? Yeah, and I said that before. Outside of Parrish getting on a roll, I really like the Lions. The draw coming up is really nice. I've got to find where I had the Lions draw here. So we got this week the Crows struggling a little bit. The Crows had a great showdown, but they can leak points. So it's a big match for both teams there. Richmond at the Gabba. Good luck to my boys there. Hawthorn, they do put in the giant killer performance, and hopefully they keep it up for Hawks fans. But I think the Lions should be too strong there. The Dogs, who knows what will be happening to them by round 13, and even the Saints at the Gabba. Do you think the Lions should be probably too strong for them? And then after the bye period, they have Adelaide at home and West Coast away, so they do have some really good juicy games. I said before, Lachie Neale going into this round was some people dropped him too last week, which is awful. But he's 2.6% and Dunkley is 4%. So they're the two players that nobody's on. We know they finish top 8 most years or around the mark. Well, Lachie Neale finishes top 8 most years. Dunkley's done it a couple of times. So yeah, you can definitely go with some confidence with them, because the Lions with that draw should get on a roll, and we know they were the grand finals last year, so why couldn't they continue to perform? So that's probably the ones that I would probably like to do. But and I think I'm probably in the mix. I could nearly do it, but I am trying to think about targeting either a Stewart or Zorko, so I kind of want a little bit of cash left over for the following week. But Lachie Neale does tempt me. It's no different to Ryan. All these players are great players. In a perfect world, I'd love 10 trades and bring them all in, but unfortunately, that's not the case. Thomas, are we still holding Powell? It's a great question. At least he was playing midfield. It does rely very much on sort of their balance. Break even of 104 is not terrible. Playing the Suns. But I'd probably want to see something a bit this week. He's not going to drop too much cash, so I'm not sort of worried about that. It's just kind of the points on field. But if there was another obvious forward to go to, I'd probably jump on it, but there isn't as much this week. So I'm kind of happy just to give him another week and just kind of see it. He's probably going to pump out another 70, and it's just a frustrating score. But you could easily jump off. Like 9% jumped off last week, so that he dropped the 20k there. But I'm nearly at the point where I think I might just hold him. It is up at TIO, which is Darwin, so can be greasy there. If he's playing midfield, he probably can get on to some especially some tackling, which will boost his score. Excuse me. We did see him against the Lions earlier this year, had laid the 15 tackles, so he can do that, and wouldn't be surprised if him and Rao had a bit of a tackle fest in those sort of conditions this week. So I think there's not a lot to gain by trading him out. I think I'm probably happy to take the risk and see if he can rebound to some good form. Matt, is it worth getting McKercher back as a replacement D7 M9 for the rest of the year? Thanks, mate. I don't mind it. Like I said this start of the year, I'm not going to make the same mistake of I think I traded Dacos early last year, other year before, Sheasel early last year, like around the bye period, and then went early McKercher, which he was always going to have that drop, and we're going to wait and see. But these guys who come in, play that halfback role, just, they're not getting any attention. They rack up positions for fun. And we've seen both Dacos and Sheasel be keepers. And McKercher could definitely do that. And he's at 309,000. He's going to make cash for us. So if you're debating between sort of Jones and McKercher, well, they're both going to make the same amount of cash, at least over the next couple of weeks. So would I rather just pay the 300 and get the guy who potentially has the ability to become a keeper over the guy who we know Jones isn't going to be a keeper? He's just a cash-making cow. So, if I had to make the choice between those two, that's the one I'm going. And that's where I said at the start of the show, for me, it's either go Oliver and Parrish to get on that that run, or I go Ryan and play the safety call like a lot of the top 1% and hope that he continues his unreal form and jump on McKercher and kind of finish my defense. Well, at least pretty well finish it then, and then look at maybe just moving McKercher into the midfield so I can get Stewart next week. So there's that, and I'm really divided on the play because they're both. I feel like it. You know what? It's just probably going to be a much of a muchness. Like if I go either way, they're probably going to both work out. But so yeah, I like McKercher better than getting Jones and bringing him in. And as you said, he could become a D7 M9 as well. So that's where I'm kind of in my head thinking, going, well, if I went Ryan and McKercher, yeah, my defense is technically finished, but I can still bring in Stewart, put McKercher in that midfield, and he could potentially just become a very handy loophole guy, which I always like having. Like, I like to set up having, I'm happy to burn my trades, but have 24 premiums and a couple of them, let's loosely say premiums, but who can swing between the lines. So I think last year or the year before, those who have followed me, and it's probably why I've ranked really well over the last few years, because people get 1 week injuries and they're like, oh, do I trade? I don't have a trade. And I go, well, I don't care the fact I've got a trade. I can just bring on one of my premiums and I'm covering all the lines. So I usually have a ruck forward. So in this case, it'd probably be Jackson that I'd be looking to hopefully turn into my F7 R3. And then maybe a McKercher does come in and he just becomes my D7 M9. And those two guys are just there. And then when you get later in the year, and we see it every year, players cop 1 week concussions, they cop suspensions, they get rests, and everyone starts scrambling because, even with 40 trades, we're going to still get low in trades, and people don't want to trade out guys for 1 week. So having those options like this who are dual position make your team really handy for your team, and it's ways to get up the rankings later in the season, the stuff that people don't think about. So just putting that out there now, because this is the sort of stuff, especially if you're really wanting to try to finish high, you've got to think about. Matty, would you rather get Comben or Sam Darcy for McKercher? I think it's a bit of a muchness, but I'm leaning towards keep Darcy this week just because it's the Tigers, and he's, we're giving up. We've got nothing in defence at the moment, like Benny Miller and Tyler Young. No disrespect to those two young boys, but if Darcy's getting on the end of a few changes there, he should do pretty well. Comben, it is up in Darwin, so it's going to be harder to mark. So break even at 56. Like, he's not an urgent trade out, but if you're looking at one or the other, I think you trade out Comben because it should be a tougher game for him. If Comben has the ability to take intercept marks, so he can definitely reset and make more cash than what Darcy's going to be. I'm just kind of worried about the chances of him. Like, they've got projected score for Comben at 78, and that's probably based on all the data for Gold Coast, but I don't know how much they've factored in the TIO situation there. We know the games at night, Darwin, Northern Territory games are greasy, really hard to take those sort of marks. So something that in a perfect world, I'd like to get Comben off field. And I've even played around with trading him too. And that's where this whole Ryan McKercher debate comes in for me, because I think I can trade Comben. I can't remember if I can or not. I've got to actually go through it, but I feel like I might have been in the mix where I can trade Comben out and get in McKercher. If I can't, well, you just got to stay there for a week. But I might even, because of McKercher, may be able to move him to the forward line and at least bench him and not have him there this week on field, because I don't know how he's going to score up in those conditions. All right, Burners, thoughts on trades this week? Option A, Robertson Mass to Ryan and Darcy Jones. Cool. Or in the bank, B, Robertson Mass to Jones and McKercher with 500 in the bank. As much as I'm just trying to think, you can't do that either, can you? No. I would go the Jones and Ryan one just because it's an actual premium. That's it. Like, if it was Ryan and McKercher, it's a different story. But I think you've got to go Ryan over McKercher. He's just, the guy's just a superstar. As much as McKercher is cheaper, and I get the 500k potentially, but the 167k probably brings you in a premium next week anyway. You could probably use that to upgrade someone as well. The 500k just seems too much money to be just sitting there on the bench at all. All All right, Tyler, I can finish my midfield with Oliver this week, but I don't have Butters. Should I be worried? And if so, is it worth upgrading Tom Green to Butters? I feel like nearly Tom Green's burnt so much money. I'd nearly just hold him. He's not going to get up this week. Yes, there's a break even at 144, and the form hasn't been great, but I kind of like the idea of just holding Green as M8. It will put you ahead if you've got the ability, especially if you've got the ability to boost, and you can move Tom Green on now and get another premium in, and you just go, okay, I'm not going to have Green, and he doesn't get back to that form that he started at the start of the year when he was absolutely flying, then fine, no problems. But that 5 will come out in a couple of weeks. He'll reset his cash. Like, he will drop about 70, 80K over the next couple of weeks, but I feel like then he'll have a boost and he'll get rolling again. He's too good of a player not to. So yeah, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it now. And yeah, if you want to get Butters or one of those top premiums, then yeah, this is the last chance you've probably got to do it if you are going to Tom Green. I think I'd need to find out if the Giants came out and said Tom Green's going to miss a couple of weeks, then it's a different story, and then I'd probably trade Tom Green. I feel like if he was close this week, if it's a 1 weeker, I can live with that, and I'll just wear the fact that he's going to drop some cash because I just look at him as a premium, and that'll go up and down throughout the season. So I'm not so fussed about that. They've got probably their biggest rivals the following week in the Bulldogs. So, he's got the potential to bounce back. His break even will get out to about close to 200. But yeah, after that, it just resets. So, I've got no problems if that's what you want to do. And the fact that you can get Oliver and Butters in there and bypass Green. I know Chris has obviously been bypassing Green this year. So it has been working out for those who haven't got him. Kev, who should you go this week? Roberts or Powell Roberts? Yeah, Abdul says Roberts. Heat mat doesn't look good. No, it doesn't. And that's why Roberts is out of my team at the moment. Break even's big. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if Roberts potentially got a rest for the Swans. That's not completely out. And maybe because of McCartan's injury, is that changing up the back line too much in 1 week? So he probably survives because of that, but I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of want to give him a break. He's been fantastic so far. Does have great scoring, but yeah, that's if I go the Oliver Parish way, I'm leaning towards Roberts. I think he can hold Powell. There's just not many great forward options, and Powell's still got the ability to score a 90 or 100, and that's no different. You look at any other sort of potential F6, F7 option, and someone does 100 and the next week they score 40 or 50. So I don't really see the worth really trading Powell if you didn't do it last week. Carl, g'day, mate. If you had Jordan Sweet at R2, now here we go. Finally, I've been waiting for this one. So Jordan Sweet at RT, would you cop Naismith at R3, assuming he doesn't go straight out for Bolter, or would you trade Naismith for English Marshall and Park Sweet at R3? Well, most likely Sweet is missing this week. He's got, I believe, COVID, if that's still a thing these days. But he's not well, so most likely probably not going to play. If you've got Luke Jackson, that's an easy one. Jackson goes into your rucks this week. Sweet is your emergency. If you don't, I got no faith in Naismith at all. So, and if you're going to choose between the two, you're getting English. So, I'd probably move Naismith, and then it's just a shame because Sweet could have been a nice R2 for a while for people. I still think he will be a good one to be, but just the illness couldn't come at a worse time. So, if you don't have Jackson, you're going to have to move because I don't see Naismith offering much at all, because the thing is, unless Nank's not out there, he has to play more of a forward. He's usually the guy that's going to get subbed off. You're probably getting a 40 to 50 out of him. If you're happy to take a 40 and 50 for him for a week from Naismith, and just treat him like any other rookie, potentially, and you can maybe upgrade somewhere else. But if this is your chance to get maybe a Tim English, then go out and get him. HTC, thoughts on Dunkley and Neil? Yep, I did talk about this before. Love their draw. Either one. Neil's actually more of a pod than Dunkley, which actually surprises me at the moment. Either one. There'll be somebody out there might probably try to get both in, but then it's just a buy, which is unfortunate. But I like that as a pod play. I like this. Fab Spark Stephen May, thoughts? Break even of 24.70k, same thing as last year. Maybe the guy's a superstar. I know his partner. I think congratulations to her because she's. Well, I know it's okay. She's, they're expecting their child soon enough. But I'm a friend of her friend. So, I'd love to actually. I was thinking about that and shouting out to my friend and saying if she could potentially hook us up with Stephen May on here. Guys, the guy's a superstar. He's one of the best defenders, one of the best players in the league, massively underrated. He is a guy that I have owned more than once in Supercoach, and he's that sort of perfect guy. If you picked him up cheap enough at different points, as you're a real sneaky M9, 1% of teams, and outside that 12, and that was the thing. He went to 400k again, and he's the sort of guy. He does this every year. He has a stinker or an injury game or whatever. Gets really cheap. Nobody jumped on this year. Got to 400k, and what does he do? Comes out, goes 98, 79, 116, 131. So he's not the sort of guy I kind of necessarily want at D6, but as somebody who could sit at D7, and then if I can move, like say a Martin or Dacos around, and he can play on it, or if I can loophole him, and the Ds do play a lot of early games, he's that perfect guy. So it's a little bit more expensive now because we're getting into that range of not being far off Stewart. Like, who do I want, May or Stewart, for the same similar price? I'm going to go Stewart. But yeah, he is one who definitely can put up great scores. And yeah, if you had depending on how your team's set up, he's definitely one of those guys I love owning as a D7, and then have somebody else loopholing between, say for example, Nick Martin this year. He could be my go between defense and midfield, and Mays comes on when I need to put Martin forward, because more than enough Martin does. May puts up massive scores. I think it was 2021. So yeah, again, May puts up an injury 7 early on the season, dropped to 400k, and then comes out and goes 94, 145, 95. Then puts some few lower scores on, but there's enough games where he pulls up like a 130, 110s and stuff like that, and all of a sudden he's a very handy player. So I really do like that. All right. Vlosten, I said this to the boys in the chat the other day. He's clearly the number one defender at Richmond. Short's been the one being asked a lot. I know my good mate JP has been asking me nonstop about good old Shorty. You can hold 1 week for Short. Let's see if this will do this for me. Where is my man Shorty? So Jaden Short, 384. Can't remember the last time he was that cheap. And comes off, break even of 89. So more than likely he's probably not getting that, but he does have that 15 in his score. If he was to come out and score again a 115, you're probably looking at the situation he's going to still be under 400k. And it's probably enough time to have a look at him again. He's going to get plenty of ball. I just think Vosten's the more reliable one. But yeah, he's going to be hard to ignore. So next week, wait 1 week. His break even should be around, maybe somewhere between 30 and 50. So you can definitely jump on in him under 400k next week and get another week, because obviously he has put up some 60s, so 3 60s in a row. So I'm a little scared about saying jump on yet. Another week of evidence. If he's back to sort of that short form that we know, then we can reassess as a cheap guy. A little bit burnt, obviously, because I started him and then had to trade him out. But yeah, Vlosten this year is the one having the career year. He's the leader down there. He's been a leader for a long time, but outside of that game against St Kilda, the smaller ground at Norwood didn't suit him that day. Vlosten has been flying as a defender, and he is at 529. Which is cheaper than what he's it's around not far off what he started the season anyway. And he's break even. He can he's still got break even of 96, so he's not going to potentially kill you too much unless he has one of those massive games, which he did against the Swans. Does like playing at the G, so you could, if you had to choose, I would rather just pay up and probably get Vlosten, only in 2% of teams, so there's a real pod. Because, just every week he's dominating, he takes kick-ins. They like to get the ball in his hands, so I probably prefer that at the moment. Carl, how do you see Jaden Short? There we go. And Liam Baker. Well, Liam Baker, we know is out of contract. Richmond have put a 5-year offer up. Freo have put a 5-year offer to him. West Coast, we don't know where they land. The problem with Bakes, he is always going to be the Mr. Fix-It. I was really hoping he would settle that role while Taranto was out, but it hasn't the case. He's still playing Mr. Fix-It, and that's why he puts up a 60 on the weekend. If he played pure role, then it's a different story. He's the ultimate team man. And, he puts up some great scores. He's got the ability to go massive, but I always think he's going to be, a bit of a team player. And he's the perfect guy that you want in your club to support, but he's not necessarily the super coach guy that we want, because they'll unfortunately don't lock him into a position. So I'm saying don't get on Bakes. I've just talked about Jaden Short. So if you want a Richmond player, hold on to Short. Wait to see next week. But if you wanted to really jump on someone, jump on Vlosten. Shai Bolton potentially gets really cheap after his absolute stinker of a game against the Dockers on the weekend. What did he end up? So his break-even's got to 194, and he's already 520. So potentially Shai Bolton, gets down to 450, if not cheaper. And he had a great start to the year. So we're talking about forward options developing throughout the season. If Shai Bolton got to somewhere between 4 and 440, definitely is going to be considered at some point. So because we know he's got the ability to put up big scores, and just hopefully gets out a couple stinkers now. So they're probably the couple of Richmond players we'll be looking at. Dusty, I obviously love Dusty, but I'd be probably staying away for now unless something massively changed. He's going to put up his 80s, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere near the Dusty at old. The one that's been the big shock that no one's jumped on, Grimo and I take the mickey out of this guy a little bit, but I'm loving his development this year. And he's gone up to 76K. That's Ben Miller. And just because he's seeing so much ball because of spending so much time in that Richmond defense. So, Benny Miller, who started the year at 328, is now 405, owned by 1% of teams. But his last 3 weeks, 103, 75, 95, and is a ruck forward. So that's the only reason he's kind of relevant, because he's seeing a lot of ball, but he is a ruck forward. So if he was probably 300, 350K, I'd nearly say, it might be not a bad little sneaky option there, but I think he's probably just a little bit more expensive then. And that's probably enough talking about my Tigers. Speaking of pods, what are some of your VC and captain options? Yep, that's cool. Well, the big one this week is Thursday night football, because it's obviously the easiest game for us to loophole. Geelong, Carlton, Melbourne. It's hard to go past our man Maxi Gawn. Pidden, it's not a bad defensive ruck, but Gawn is just on fire, looks awesome. So it's hard to ignore him. And if I was to bring in Clary, it's kind of hard to ignore him as well. But I do like another option further in the game, further in the round, because owning Livingston, plays the second last game. So I can kind of wait for that a little bit. I don't know if I'm so in love with, say, Orion against the Swans. I don't think he's surely can't go as huge the same as this week. Tom Stewart's the kind of game where he probably goes massive. No one will have him. No one will have him vice captain. Watch him go like 150 or something, and just stuff our sort of plans around him. And you'll probably go up a little bit more money. So, I like him. I feel like the midfield battle, Fremantle, Sydney, will be interesting. Sarong's probably putting up a 120. It's more of a captain score than a vice captain score. Same with Heaney. Don't feel like it's going. I feel like Heaney's probably a 110 guy this week. The games I really want to talk about is Essendon and the Giants. If Green and Keneally are both missing again, if you've got Merritt or Parrish, vice captain one of them. Yeah, that's at Marvel, as good as the Giants should be still. If they're missing two of their main midfielders, it's going to be tough for them. So that's a good one. The biggest one is the Western Bulldogs are playing Richmond. So I'm going to being bad, I'm going to the Essendon Giants game this week, trying to convince my other half to do the double header. But the Bond against the Dogs. Like, the Dogs are coming off a bad loss. He is the captain of that club. The Bulldogs need to win, and they couldn't get a better opportunity right now against a beaten up Richmond. So the Bond either has to be your vice captain or captain this week. because there is potential for him to go absolutely huge. Fremantle last week, like have a look at some of these numbers from the docket. So you got Ryan, we know it's gone 197. Sarong's had it 38 times as well, gone 137, and probably got unlucky because his AF2 Supercoach was actually -4. So I think he started a little bit slow, or maybe a couple of disposals he turned over, so could have been higher. Hayden Young went 130. Johnson 108, Brayshaw 107. Again, he butchered the ball as well. So all the midfielders got in on it. Bulldogs now without Liver in there, so it's McRae, Liver, Treloar. And the only other one is Bailey Dale, who could, if you've got him, he might be a sneaky VC. But I feel like most of the competition are either going to have Gawn into Bont, or you're going to go maybe like a Parish Merritt into Bont, or you go Bont into somebody else. The options aren't as open after that because Bont is playing the same time as the Gold Coast North game. People would probably some would normally look at Rao maybe in that game, contested game, but it's just too hard not to. You're not going to go Rao over Bont, so take that out. And then Collingwood West Coast, we've got really no one from there outside of Dacos. So you could Dacos as a backup captain, no problems there. So Bont into Dacos will probably be the other option. And maybe if you had Neil, you could potentially bring him in as well. But for me, I'm debating between Gawn. Like, I don't mind the idea of getting the Gawn because we know he can. We know what he can do. But just because I'm probably I'll be at the Essendon game for sure. I really want one of those. But if I bring in Parish, I'm tempted to go him. But yeah, either one of those two. But it's really hard because I'm really worried about what the Bont could do against Richmond. I don't really want Gawn putting up a 130 or Merritt, 130, 140, and then there's Bont sitting there and he's goes 160 against Richmond. It'd be a different story if the Bulldogs were come off a win, they were in the 8, their percentage was healthy, but it's not. The Bulldogs, all the pressures on Beverly. Well, their percentage is fairly healthy, but in consideration to the top teams. But they're 3 and 5, so they're going to have to win for starters. And then there's a chance that their percentage is 111. We're talking about like Fremantle at 120, Melbourne 124. They can close the gap on those teams with a massive win. And who's going to lead that is their captain, Bont. So I feel like Bont's probably going to be the vice captain option here. All right, evening Swiz. Thanks, Scotty. Got Libba, have 2 options, either straight swap to Zero, Rao, Butters, or go to Oliver and bank the 140. It's for me, it's Merritt. You got to get on the Bombers here, or Rao with the Suns. I like Butters, Oliver. I've already obviously got Butters, so it's a bit different. But yeah, I think Merritt's the one you got to find a way in. Probably leading the Brownlow at the moment. Wouldn't be surprised. What are we 8 rounds in? Merritt, Heaney up the top. Anyone else? It'd be interesting in what you guys think there. Scotty, speaking of pods, we answered that one, so all good. What's up, Mikel? Traded out Libba, Mass, and Jordan for Ryan, Oliver, and Jones. Flying, mate. Yeah, 100%. If you use a boost to bring in those guys, get on them. Get on them for sure. What do we got here? Travis, thanks, mate. No problems. This week, looking at Ryan and Jones in for comp. That's the play that most people are going. Only issue is sweet at R2. Worth copying. Oh, I don't like copying donuts, especially currently in the top 1%. Do not. Oh, you can't cop the donut. Oh, jeez. So this is where it gets interesting. You might have to bypass Ryan and go get a Ruck. And it might have to be, and then it's going to have to be English. Like, talking about vice captaining Bont, now I'm speaking because I obviously don't own the guy, but if you have English, vice captain English, like, he could absolutely destroy Richmond this week. So instead of getting Ryan, mate, go and get English and potentially put the vice captain on him, and you just have to bypass Ryan. It's annoying, but yeah, he's probably the guy. What we got there? Yep, we've talked about that. Nath moved up 640. Another dilemma here: Bailey Dale, Oliver, and Parish in, or go Bont and Parish. Save the trade boost for Jones. Cash chasing number 1. Yeah, no props, mate. The thing at least there. Excuse me. I've just talked up the Bont. I really love the Bont. But if you are chasing number one, Bailey Dale is going to probably score awesome against the Tigers this week, so that's setting you up. At least it's the defender. Like, you could wait a week and get Stewart, so no problems there. We've talked about Essendon's draw. Oliver's a big risk. The safe play is Bont and Parish. I'd probably save the boost because I think that can potentially become handy as you're going on. And you don't know what's going to open up in the next couple of weeks. Buy period's not that big of a deal because we get 3 trades anyway. But so maybe just hold the boost. Maybe go the safer play in Bont and Parish. You're going to bring Parish in either way, as much as Bailey Dale and Oliver would be awesome ins. I'm kind of a little scared about not owning the Bont, as much as he hasn't been in like super hot Bont form. But the 142 bounce, looked good last week. You could definitely hold on and wait. But the problem with Bont, he's owned by half the competition, and if he goes absolutely stupid against the Tigers, which is not out of the question, I feel like it's going to be at least 140. So you're really backing Oliver and Bailey Dale for at least 1 week, let alone all the following weeks to go really good. Like, I just think you're going to need to want to own the Bont. I think Bont and Parish, and just save the boost there, mate. Who we got here? Chris, thanks, mate. Mass, Roberts, and Berry out, thinking Ryan, Stewart, and Jones were 50k left. Was thinking Oliver instead of Stewart, but you've got to go I think you've got to go the other way, and you bring in Oliver and you wait 1 week on Stewart. Stewart, as much as I think he'll go really well against Port, he's not going to hurt you with price, where Oliver's going to go up more in price. So go the other way around, mate, and get him the next week. I'll get on to this. Thank you to Mike. As always, mate, I always appreciate your donations here. Really, really great stuff, mate. So that joins Scotty from before. I'm considering going Sheasel down to McKercher, so I can go Dunkley instead of Oliver, instead of 2 rookies. And these are the sort of players which is just huge. So, Sheasel could be in a little bit of a form slump just because they've moved him to the midfield. We would rather see him down the back line, break even of 168. If you jump off before others do, and he has another stinking game playing in the midfield, TIO doesn't suit him against a really good Suns midfield, puts up a 70, you're ahead of the game there because you'd be jumping on a Dunkley, who we know the fixture coming up is really handy, and you still could get McKercher at halfback scoring well. So I've talked to a couple other people that I respect in the Supercoach world. They are looking at going early on Sheasel. I personally want to hold, but these are the big moves which people can make, which is make and break. And that's why I really should have had my symbol this week, my picture of like some sort of make or break picture, which would make sense, because these are the moves. Like, it could backfire horribly for you if Oliver, goes well and Sheasel starts going well. But if Sheasel, as I said, it puts up another 70 playing midfield, Oliver, a bit sluggish, only puts up a 90, and you've got McKercher going 100, and you've got Dunks coming in and going 120, flying. So it's a big risk, but we love risk here. So, and it could really move you up the rankings. I'm sure my man Chris is in the chat, and I'm sure he'd probably agree with that one as well. Talking about my man, there he is, Chris. How are you, mate? Just wondering how I should spend my 50k on. Mate, you had the 50k in the bag until, I don't know what happened with the rest of the weekend, because I was saying to you, if you don't win Supercoach this year, something's gone wrong, because you have been more KOTD than anybody, mate. JP says, exactly. Boys trip to Bali. JP loves Bali these days. And he's coming back from injury. He hasn't played a game of winter cricket with us yet, so still must be enjoying the bintangs and everything else he's been getting up to over there in Bali. I think he was actually down at I hope JP doesn't mind me saying this, down the VFL the other day, because I had a few people messaging me photos of him with JP and catching up. So good on you, mate, getting down to the local footy. Chris, missed your thoughts on Parish. Yeah, Chris, if you want to share them, that's good. I'm sure you have. Who else we got here? A Wizard of Oz, Yo and Roberts to Martin and Oliver, or Yo and Roberts to Flanders and Oliver? Well, I think because you need Flanders, or Yo and Reed to Flanders and Martin. Because I feel like Flanders, you need Flanders in the forward line. Playing North again this week, he's just he's just killing it. There's nothing more to say about this guy. Every week he just keeps doing it. And I think, is he down to the last 4 in the ton run? So hopefully he keeps it up. Like, he's got to put in a poor score eventually, doesn't he? So I'd probably like Yo and Reed out more than Flanders and Martin, because I think they're kind of must-haves. One's in the forward line and one's in the back line. But I kind of don't want it to trade out Harley Reid. But what was your other trade out Yo anyway? So you're going to do that, Roberts. But I don't like Roberts as well. Jeez. Actually, what is Flanders break even? Because that might make me reconsider that. Flanders, his break even's 100. So maybe if that's the case, go Martin and Oliver. So Yo and Roberts to Martin and Oliver, just because of that break even situation there with Flanders. And I just think Martin is probably slightly ahead of Flanders at the moment. Pod move is Sinclair. Yes, Chris, agree. I talked about that before. Risky, but the spike in CBAs and upcoming fixtures are great. 100%. So, yeah, it is a risky move. I prefer waiting maybe on Stewart, but if you don't want Stewart, or you need an extra defender anyway, Sinclair is definitely one. And how close could Sinclair get to Ryan for the rest of the year? Like, Ryan surely can't just keep pumping up 130s every week. Someone's going to put attention to him. So Sinclair's a guy who can average 105. So if Ryan, even if it's 10 points, like it's going to be saving of about 100K. It's not the worst move. And we know, Sinclair can definitely put on, he's a solid scorer. He'll put the odd 60 in, but outside of that, it's 110s most weeks. And Fab agrees with that. Tom, what about Chapman at Fremantle? It's left field. Not 100% sold on that. Like, I just feel like it's Ryan's world we're living in for Freo, but yeah, it wasn't like he did everything right. Like he did. It wasn't like he stood out for me in the game. He just did what he had to do. What's he gonna kind of do? 80s. I don't think there's much more in that. Like he's not a bad price. That's 251. The break even's -7, so that is something. 80 at best. Maybe he's doing 70s. If he's doing 70s, what's he making us, like 80K? I think we can go better than that. I'd rather wait and see what Jack Hayes does. I'm not 100% convinced on that. It is left field. He is cheap, but I just think he's in no man's land. Doesn't do anything for our teams. Excuse me. All right, here we go. Best trade in Stewart for value. Stewart next week, or Merritt Rao. Merritt for sure. Chris, do you think it makes sense to ICK? I'm trying to think what you are asking on that. I'm not too sure what you're asking on that, so we'll leave that one. No, sorry. There you go. Sorry, Dunkley instead of Ryan this week. Oh, that's better. That makes sense. I don't mind that. Like, Dunkley's going to be he's a premium midfielder. He's probably going to average 110, 115. 115. It's not out of the question there for him playing at the Lions. He's then either their number 1 or number 2 on any given week. Loves the tackle, does all the defensive stuff. Similar price. So, yeah, he's going the pod option. They've got a great draw. Why not? Merritt or Ryan, both premiums. I'm leaning towards Merritt just because he's the gun midfielder. Great draw. Captain option on any given week. Ryan, as good as his spiking is, it can't continue forever. He's got to have a bad game. Matt, really stuck on either Parrish and Oliver or McKercher and Ryan. Hey, absolutely doing my head in. Oh, welcome to the club there, mate. The more I kind of talk about, it's funny, more I talk about it, McKercher and Ryan makes sense, but I feel like I need to go Parrish and Oliver. I'm going to literally change that. I think I've already changed that 6 times this week. I'm so on the fence about that. Yeah, Chapman, not really worth it. Yep, fair call. So we got Yo, Robertson, Cadman for Harry to Ryan, Oliver, and McKercher, or Ryan, Oliver. No. Go the Ryan, Oliver, and McKercher trade there. I think that's the better one. Or Ryan, Parrish, and Jones. No. I like the Ryan Oliver McKercher, 80K in the bank. I don't think you can. Is Oliver 80K more than what's Parrish here? Parrish is 528. Why couldn't you go Ryan, Parrish, and McKercher? I probably like that one better. I don't. Well, again, that was the whole debate. Do you want Oliver potentially for all the year or Parrish for the spike that he's about to put up? So either way, so either Ryan Oliver McKercher or Ryan Parrish McKercher, depending on which way you want to go there, mate. Rather be filling holes quickly and not having the lower ceilings on field. Yeah, exactly. We want to try to get rookies off. Do I keep Yo? You've already traded. West Coast supporters, so you're going to want to treat Yo. This is probably one for Chris because he's been big on Yo, obviously, this year. I'm a little skeptical. My feeling is, why would they want to risk him coming back? Like, yeah, they're talking about maybe being a couple of weeks. So what's West Coast? They play away this week, so not playing. But then the following week, they do play the last game, so it does give him more time against the Ds. If he's right, does he put his hand up to play? The following week, it's Adelaide. So, yeah, again, it's a away game. It gets on the plane. Probably not. So I feel like if he doesn't get for Melbourne, are they going to risk him? Maybe put him on the plane for that. Then the week after that is St Kilda. I think that's the St Kilda and then North Melbourne. If West Coast are wanting wins this season to move up the ladder, you think they're probably setting themselves against St Kilda, who potentially they nearly got last year. I think was that last year where they won by 8 points, the Saints, and then obviously North. So I think it becomes a 3-weeker. So I think Yo is a trade with Libba there. Should I get Sarong, Merritt, Oliver, or Sinclair? So my ranking there would be Merritt, Sarong, Oliver, Sinclair. Okay. In what order? Yep. In what order would you trade out the following? Rosie, Green, and Yo. So Yo first, Rosie second, Green third. And would I hold all three? You're not holding Yo. I think there's potential that why risk him? We know he's high risk. Even if they said it was a 1 weeker, it's going to be 2, and then it probably becomes 3. So Yo's the one. Hey Lincoln, how? Yeah, I'm good, mate. Best Libba replacement. Yes, I've gone through a few of them, but Clary or Gold Coast midfielders. I prefer now probably the Brisbane midfielders. Dunkley, Neal, have a look at them. Rao should have a field day as well. Williams has got to go. Can Kirch do 95? Not too sure. Can he do 90? Yeah, 85 at least. His price, fine. So it all depends on Kirch's role. And if they're going to keep him a halfback, which looks like they are, I think that's fine. So you could go Williams to Kirch. And then, I'd be, if you don't want Rao and you want to go left field, Dunkley or Neal, mate. And also said, thinking of Powell to Jones, Libba to Rao, and Williams to a 622 defender. I'm gathering you've already got Ryan, because I'd sit there and say, okay, can you go someone cheaper than Rao to get Ryan? If you've already got Ryan, then you could go cheaper and go either you could go Sinclair, or you could just go out and get Houston, who's still at 607. If you don't have Nick Martin, go get Nick Martin. If you don't have, you can't get Dacos, but I'm sure you've already probably got him as well. Thanks, Mike, again. As I'm just scrolling through some of these. Turned it into a bit of a long one here, guys, but got a bit of a later start tomorrow, so it's all good. Thanks, Carl. 100% Baker. Yeah, too versatile. And that's why Freo and West Coast are after him, because he can solve any problem. There's nothing worse from a footy perspective, and we all know this. You can lose a player in-game, and then the other factor, if you lose a player for 3, 4, 5 weeks. And some players can't be versatile. Beveridge has been trying to do that. The Bulldogs trying to make players more versatile, play in different positions. Not all players can do that, as we know. So some players just can't make that adjustment. They need to play that one particular position. Liam Baker is probably the opposite. He can play every position. Is he an A+ player in any of those positions? No. But can he be sort of a B+ 80% guy in all those? Yes, he can. So he can fill holes on in-game or on any given week. So that's why they want him. And apart from the fact he's just a leader in his heart and soul. So it's not, if he went to West Coast, there's potential more because they probably want him to play more midfield. If he went to Freo, I think it's just a case of him continue to play roles. I'm leaning more and more he's not going to stay at Richmond. Too many questions about Hardiman. They've just got so many options down there. It's just a hard no for me. I think with him, hopefully the young fella continues to develop, but I just think he's going to potentially get moved around a little. He got subbed out. They've just got so many options that they can put through halfback. So no. Maxi, hey mate, just got here. No problems. Thoughts on Bailey Dale? Yeah. I don't know if he can be best 6, but he can definitely be top 10. And I think the gap's not huge that he couldn't do well, and he could smash a big score this week against the Tigers. So he's already poking me ahead, and then the others will creep up with him bit by bit and overtake him, but he'll still be up there. So yeah, if Green's out, no problems with that, mate. All Supercoach issues can blame on Fab. That's a joke that we've got going in one of our group chats. Okay. Would you go Oliver and McKercher or Jones and either Merritt or Parrish? Oh, actually, talking about group chats, and I'm pretty sure, I'm not too sure I forget who's running this, but there is somebody put up on Twitter today, Twitter Supercoach chat page. The Duke did. The Duke. So if you're not following the Duke, follow the Duke. And he's created a Twitter group chat. So I'm actually in that chat. So yeah, if you want to join a chat that I'm in on Twitter, that's the one to go to. So would you go Oliver, McKercher or Jones and either Merritt or Parrish? I think you need Merritt. So yeah, it's going to be Jones and Merritt. As much as like Oliver McKercher, great, no problems, but I think Merritt's more of a issue because he's safe, competent. Yeah, great, mate. Flip a coin on this one. I'm leaning more towards Bont just because he's the captain and he has to lead from the front. But and Nank's not, as much as Nank's been giving points up to Rucks, he's not a terrible Ruck. He's the captain. He needs to show leadership this week. So I think there's potential English could be a little bit capped on that. I still think he's going to go great. If probably English goes 140, but surely Bont, if they are fair dinkum, he's got to lead from the front. He's got to be the man. He's got to go huge. Okay, we're getting nearly the end of this list now, I think. So we'll see. We don't matter. So it's a bit torn on Stewart or McKercher to bring in. So you want Stewart from next week. So yes, I know you're saving about 200K. You could potentially go McKercher this week, find the way to get Stewart in the following week, and McKercher becomes a future D7 M9. Just chuck him in your midfield from next week, and that'll sort itself out. So you can potentially do both, but Stewart's the one you're going to want. How many games? Like, okay, we're missing this week because of the Port, and he can, with his break even, like he could, I said earlier, he could potentially get there. I'd rather just kind of hold because he's not going to go up in cash. He probably, if he goes up, it's not going to be too much. But where are we here? My man Tommy Stewart, break even of 132. Like he can get there for sure at home. He probably puts out a 150 and goes up 8K or something. We pay 530 for him. But like he had the first game GMS this year, 105. He's put up a 108. Previous years, he has put up some monster scores at GMS. What did he go to last year? He got a 111, 138, 111, 124, 104, 101, 134, 124. So he just doesn't miss out there. So I just think he'll be around the same price. If you want to go early on him, you could just to get that 100, 120 points locked in. But I think, you kind of got to need him. Harry, hopefully it's a good round. Yeah, well, hopefully it's not the carnage of last week. Or if it's going to be carnage, please don't be my team. Would you go Oliver McKercher? Oh, yeah, that's what I just said. Or Jones or, Merritt, no problems. I think I've said that. Oliver, the conditions, the game suited him, Maxi. So there was some confidence that he's returned. I still think his fitness needs to increase a little bit, but let's just I've got no problem people jumping on, but there are a couple concerns there. But the D's look good. Oliver's such a gun player. He's going to return to some form soon enough. Widescreen TV. Looking at using my last boots, can't work out who to trade in. 2 out of Bont, Oliver, Merritt. Then either bring in Jones or McKercher with the last trade, or Grundy to English. So we're looking at can't work out who to trade in. 2 of Bont, Oliver, Merritt. Okay, so that's going to be Bont and Merritt. Then bring in either Jones or McKercher. If there's a way you can bring in Bont, Merritt, and McKercher, do that. If it's going to be Bont, Merritt, and Jones, cool, no problems. And if you've got to choose, then it's got to be, I'd go Bont, and if you could do Bont, if it's one from each, it'd be Bont, McKercher, and then you don't need to really do Grundy to English right now, but I think at one point you're going to want to own English. So if you can pull that out, that sounds good. Chances of Jordan going to Sarong or Ryan this week, he did a great job on Whitfield. The problem is Perth's stadium's bigger, so it's probably going to be harder for him to cover a Ryan. But if I wasn't to get Ryan, God, I'd love him to go there. But I think there's definitely a chance he could do a bit of a run with. I feel like it suits them more to do it on the defender because it doesn't ruin their midfield combination. They do have so many good midfielders in there. So why would they want to kind of stop that? He did a really good role of Anderson the previous week. Anderson sometimes doesn't always start in the midfield. He does go wing. So Jordan, good size about him. He can follow him around, but it's potentially one or the other. I would not be surprised at all if it's Ryan, because if Ryan probably had a 28 possession game last week, it's more likely to be Sarong. But the Swans won't just let Ryan run around and do whatever he wants this week. It just can't happen. Who is better, Lockie or Dunkley? I only want one. Lockie is the reigning Brownlow medalist. Dunkley is obviously a little bit younger, but Lockie hasn't put a foot wrong this year. So, mate, that is generally, they're probably going to average similar. I think they averaged quite similar last year. Maybe Neil got a little bit ahead of Dunks. It is literally a much of a muchness. I like Dunkley because he does tackle, so he's never out of the game. So I probably lean just towards him. You're probably going to get the bigger range of scores with Dunkley. So this comes into a personal preference. Like Neil, you probably know what you're getting most weeks at just the way he's playing these days. Where Dunkley, he does have the ability to go bigger, but he can still drop it's funny because Dunkley is never out of the game, but he can still, potentially drop in maybe a lower score. But then second, Lockie Neal, this is a tough one. Every way I look at it, Lockie Neal can get attention. Dunkley won't probably get the attention. Okay, Dunkley, I'll make a choice for you. I'll go Dunks. That's a tough one, but I like it. Hey, baggers, here out goes Robert and Powell, get Ryan and Jones, or out Green and Powell, get Dunks and Perkins. The run's good. Don't like Perkins as much. Could be a good top forward, but I'm not as sold on that just because of the amount of options they have and kind of the role week to week. So I'd much prefer the Ryan Jones equation. Is Roberts Liver 5 for Ryan, Merritt, and Jones worth it? No, it is worth it. You could definitely keep 5 because he's not going to get subbed this week. But Ryan, Merritt, Jones, no problem. The only problem is with that, if you're getting rid of 5, you're probably playing Jones or another rookie on field. That's the only issue. But you are getting into gun premiums and obviously your last boost. So I've got no problem with the last boost. Short, I did answer before, Ben. Wait a week before we talk about short again. I think I answered that one. I hope I did anyway. Jordan should definitely tag. Yeah, I wouldn't say he should definitely, but I'm leaning towards more the Ryan tag over the wrong one. All right, we'll make it a couple more questions here. Thank you for everybody who's been on tonight. This has been awesome. So we've got Sweet at R2, Can't Do Donut, Thoughts out Berry, Mass and Roberts, in English, Paris and Jones. Miss out Ryan, but who cares because you're getting in English anyway. So, you don't want the donuts. So, get English, mate. Potentially put the VC on him if you don't have Bond. If you've got Bond, well, that's the good one. Even more left field, yes. Left field, Saligo. Oh, no. I would like to say yes because you are right. The fixtures are good. And surely the Crows, going to want to continue to get time in here. That was the one I was talking a little bit about, a draft Smoky earlier in the year. Form's been good. Like he's really solid, putting up 98, 97, 91. He had the big game of 146. But again, I feel like he's this Matt Crouch kind of guy, 95, 100, maybe a 105, and then puts a spike in there. So what's that means he's going to average? I don't think it's there, the next level where you've got guys not that far off him who you can be more assured that he's going to have premium scoring. The fixture is great. Don't get me wrong. West Coast, Hawthorn, Richmond coming up. definitely, and massive pod. Like he's going to be owned by nobody, under less than 1%. But I just think it's like getting Matt Crouch. And there's just other good options. So I'm going to say no to Soligo, as much as I think he's definitely one for the future for the Crows. Too many issues this week. Sweet, Yo, Green, and Lipper. Yeah, so many people like that. If you've got the Ruck cover, Sweet's an easy one there. If you don't, you need to seriously consider bringing in, obviously, an English type there. You can hold Green. Libba and Yo, you're two that have to go. Well, Yo doesn't necessarily have to, but I feel like, and you probably know as well as this West Coast rules, that Yo, it's most likely they're not going to risk him. So 2 or 3 weeks there. But, Libba, Libba has to, unfortunately. So you could definitely do a lot with Libba and Yo if you have both of them. Chris, talk about left field. I've had George Stewart. Yeah, so did Chris, and I was so close to doing it. And then I was at the London Tavern and changed my mind. Under 2%, been solid, yeah. And you can get rid of him soon, and he's doing a great job. And then just move him on. He's played his role for you. Got him in 2 keepers, and I love him. Yeah, and Soligo's great as that sort of keeper guy. But yeah, it's just a classic. I just don't think it's where I want to go. So I don't think it's going to be as top as some of those other guys that we've been talking about. And anything else that I need to see? No, I think that's it. So an hour 40, boys and girls. Thank you so much for tuning in. I don't know if I actually can say that these days, boys and girls, but thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully it is a good weekend and not any carnage this weekend like the last. Remember, Thursday night footy, lock it in, 7:30, Carlton, Melbourne, and the big one, Friday night double header footy. So Geelong Port, 7:10. Don't get confused with that. And then Freo Sydney after that at 8. Well, not even after that, probably around half time at 8:30. So you do need to be mindful of the double header on Friday night, the early start. That will catch some people out. So, and I think what do we got there, Maxi? Lockie has been averaging better than Dunkley. Yeah, it's as I said, mate. It's probably it's a much of a muchness there. They're very similar. If I just revisit that one quickly again, so there's what have we got? Lockie Neal's 117.6, Dunkley's 116.9. So it's pretty well. They're much of a muchness. They're both. It's M1, M2. If you're like if it was an NFL thing, you'd sit there and say, okay, that guy's our, RW, like wide receiver 1, the other one's a wide receiver 2, but on any given week, it might be one of those teams that kind of swaps them around, whoever's the main guy each week. So yeah, you could take either and be confident that they're going to perform well. On that note, thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I'll be back next week, and happy super coaching, happy tipping, and we'll talk soon. Thanks, boys. Thanks, guys. Bye.